안녕하세요. 원서 읽는 고양이 제니예요. 오늘은 해리포터 2권 챕터 15 The Aragog 읽어보도록 할 건데요. 어제 읽던 거 마저 읽어보도록 할게요. 냐옹. It was another difficult journey through the castle, dodging all the teachers. At last, they reached the entrance hall, slid back the lock of the front doors, squeezed between them, trying to stop the creaking, and stepped out into the room and grounds. "Course," said Ron abruptly, as their snow across the back glass. "We might get through a forest and find us nothing to follow. Those spiders might not have been going there at all. I know it looked like they were moving in that sort of a general direction, but..." His voice tailed away hopefully. They reached Hagrid's house, sad and sorry looking with its blank windows. When Harry pushed the door open, Fang went mad with joy at the sight of them. Worried it might wake everyone at the castle with his deep, booming barks, they hastily fed him treacle fudge from a tin on the metal pins, with he glued his teeth together. Harry left the invisibility cloak at Hagrid's table. There would be no need for it in the pitch-dark forest. "Come on, Fang, we're going for a walk," said Harry, patting his leg, and Fang bounded happily out of the house behind them, dashed to the edge of the forest, and lifted his leg against a large sycamore tree. Harry took out his wand, murmured, "Lumos," and a tiny light appeared in the end of it, just enough to let them watch the path as the signs of spiders. "Good thinking," said Ron. "I'd like mine too, but, it's probably blow up or something." Harry tapped Ron on the shoulder, pointing at the grass. Two solitary spiders were hurrying away from the wonderlight into the shade of the trees. "Okay," said Ron, sighed, as though resigned to the worst. "I'm ready. Let's go." So, with Fang scampering around them, sniffing tree roots and leaves, they entered the forest. By the glow of Harry's wand, they followed the steady trick of spiders moving along the path. They walked for about 20 minutes, not speaking, listening hard for noises other than breaking twigs and rustling leaves. Then, when the trees had become thicker than ever, so the stars overhead were no longer visible, and Harry's wand shone alone in the sea of dark, they saw the spider gods leaving the path. Harry paused, trying to see where the spiders were going, but everything outside his little square of lights was pitch black. He had never been this deep into the forest before. He could vividly remember Hagrid advising him not to leave the forest path last time he'd been here. But Hagrid was miles away now, probably sitting in a cell in Azkaban, and he had also said to follow the spiders. Something wet touched Harry's hand, and he jumped backwards, crushing Ron's foot. It was only Fang's nose. "What you reckon?" Harry said to Ron, whose eyes he could just make out, reflecting the light from his wand. So they followed the lighter into the trees. They couldn't move very quickly now. There were tree roots and stumps on their ways, barely visible in their near blackness. Harry could feel Fang's hot breath on his friend. More than once they had to stop so that Harry could crouch down and find the spiders in the long water. They walked for what seemed like at least half an hour. their robes snagging on low slug branches brambled. After a while, they noticed that the ground seemed to be sloping downwards, though the trees were thicker than ever. Then Fang suddenly let loose a great echoing bark, making both Harry and Ron jump out of their skins. "What?" said Ron loudly, looking around into the pitch dark and gripping Harry's elbow very hard. "There's something moving over there," Harry breathed. "Listen, sounds like something big." They listened. Some distance to their right, the something big was snapping branches as it carved a path through the trees. "Oh no," said Ron. "Oh no! Oh no! Oh, shut up!" said Harry frantically. "It'll hear you." "Hear me?" said Ron in a naturally high voice. "It already heard Fang." The darkness seemed to impressing on their eyeballs as they stood, terrified, waiting. There was a strange rumbling noise, and then silence. "What do you think it's doing?" said Harry. "Probably getting ready to pounce," said Ron. They waited, shivering, hardly dared to move. "Do you think it's gone?" said Harry whispered. "Don't know." Then, to their right, came a sudden blaze of light, so bright in the darkness that both of them flung up their hands to shield their eyes. Fang yelped and tried to run, but got lodged in the tangle of thorns and yelped even louder. "Harry!" Ron shouted, his voice breaking with relief. "Harry, it's our car!" "What?" "Come on!" Harry blundered up to run towards the light, stumbling and tripping, and a moment later they had emerged into a clearing. Mr. Weasley's car was standing empty in the middle of a circle of thick trees under a roof of dense branches, its headlamps ablaze. As Ron walked open-mouthed towards it, it moved slowly towards him, exactly like a large turquoise dog greeting its owner. "It's been here all the time," said Ron delightedly, walking around the car. "Look at it! The forest turned it wild." The wheels of the car were scratched and smeared with mud. Apparently, it had taken to trundling around the forest on its own. Fang didn't seem at all keen at it. It kept close to Harry, who could feel him quivering. His breathing slowing down again, Harry stuffed his wand back into his robes. "And we thought it was going to attack us," said Ron, leaning against the car and patting. "I wonder where they've gone." Harry squinted around the flaggly ground for signs of the All-Starters, but they were all scattered away in the glare of the headlights. "We lost the trail," he said. "Come on, let's go find them." Ron didn't speak. They didn't move. His eyes were fixed in the pointed sun 10 feet above the first floor, right behind Harry. His eyes were livid with terror. Harry didn't even have time to turn around. There was a loud clicking noise, and suddenly he felt something long, and Harry seized him around the middle and lifted him off the ground so that it was hanging face down. Struggling, terrified, he heard more clicking and saw Ron's legs leave the ground too, heard Fang whimpering and howling. Next moment, he was being swept away into the dark trees. Head hanging, Harry saw that what had holded him was marching on 6 immensely long, hairy legs, with front 2 clutching him tightly behind a pair of shining black tenses. Behind him, he could hear another of the creatures, no doubt carrying Ron. They were moving into the very heart of the forest. Harry could hear Fang fighting to free himself on the third monster, whining loudly. But Harry couldn't have yelled even if he wanted to. He seemed to have left his voice back with the car in the clearing.